down, man.
Sit down, Joe.
Why you think I'm making?
Sit down, Joe.
Huh?
Sit down quick.
Why you think I'm making?
Brothers.
Joe Frazier, Smokin Joe, wasn't just a boxer. He was a force of nature. The man who fought with heart, grit, and a left hook that could drop a tree. But greatness, especially in boxing, always comes with enemies. Frazier's relentless style, his pride, and his fierce personality created more than just rivalries. They sparked grudges that lasted decades. He was loved by millions for his courage, but inside the boxing world, not everyone shared that admiration. Some fighters feared him, some resented him, and some outright hated him. Here are 10 boxers who hated Joe Frazier the most, and the real stories behind the animosity. 1. Muhammad Ali. No one had a love-hate relationship with Joe Frazier quite like Muhammad Ali.
Prove I'm the greatest. I'm gonna prove to you I'm the greatest. We gonna prove to the world I'm the greatest. This is my last fight. I don't want.
Their rivalry was boxing's greatest saga. 3 fights, 3 wars, and a lifetime of emotional scars. At first, Frazier helped Ali when he was banned for refusing the draft, even lending him money. But when Ali returned to the ring, he turned on Joe, calling him names like Uncle Tom and Gorilla. Those insults weren't just words, they were wounds. Frazier took them personally, deeply hurt by how Ali repaid his kindness. In the fight of the century in 1971, Frazier got his revenge, knocking Ali down and winning a unanimous decision. Yet, Ali's taunts continued for years, making Frazier's hatred simmer long after they both retired. Frazier once said, "I always respected him as a fighter, but as a man, I wanted to punch him again." 2. George Foreman. George Foreman and Joe Frazier's hatred was forged in pain, specifically the pain of Frazier being brutally knocked down 6 times in their 1973 fight. Foreman didn't just beat Frazier, he destroyed him. But their dislike started long before the punches. Frazier viewed Foreman as an arrogant young champion who hadn't earned his place. Foreman, in turn, thought Frazier was too proud, too stuck in his champion image. When Foreman knocked Frazier out in Jamaica, he shouted, "Down goes Frazier," again and again. It wasn't just a victory, it was humiliation. Frazier never forgave Foreman for that night. Even decades later, he would downplay Foreman's accomplishments, saying, "He got me once, but he couldn't take what I took from Ali." Foreman later admitted, "Joe hated me for years." Maybe he had a right to 3. Ken Norton. Ken Norton and Joe Frazier never fought, but their dislike for each other was well known in the boxing world. Norton considered himself technically superior, while Frazier dismissed Norton as Ali's follower. Their rivalry played out through words, not punches. During interviews, Norton often mocked Frazier's style, saying, "He just ducks his head and throws wild. That's not skill, that's luck," Frazier fired back. "Norton couldn't take my left hook. He'd be gone in 2 rounds. Promoters tried to arrange a fight between the two, but it never materialized. Still, their mutual disrespect was no secret. Norton viewed Frazier as overhyped. Frazier saw Norton as an imitator. Even after retirement, the coldness between them remained. 4. Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes came from the next generation of heavyweights, the era after Frazier. But he didn't hold back when it came to criticizing Joe. Holmes felt that Frazier never gave him credit as a fighter. During interviews in the 80s, Holmes accused Frazier of living in Ali's shadow and hating anyone who came after him. Frazier didn't like Holmes either. He considered Holmes too cocky and once said, "He talks like Ali, but he ain't Ali." Holmes, who had sparred with Frazier years before, claimed Joe was too proud to admit when someone else was better. Their animosity wasn't fiery, but it was deep-rooted. 2 proud champions, 2 different eras, and 0 mutual respect. 5. Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Ellis and Joe Frazier's story is one of rivalry turned resentment. They were once friends, both from the South, both hardworking, both chasing the same dream. But when they fought in 1970 for the undisputed heavyweight title, friendship disappeared. Frazier destroyed Ellis in 4 rounds, but it wasn't just the loss, it was the humiliation. Frazier mocked Ellis afterwards, saying he wasn't ready for a real fighter. Ellis, humiliated on national television, never forgave him. He later said, Joe forgot where he came from. He thought beating Ali made him a god. Their friendship never recovered. Frazier, when asked years later about Ellis, replied coldly, "He was a good guy, but boxing ain't friendship." 6. Floyd Patterson. Floyd Patterson, the former heavyweight champion, had a complicated relationship with Joe Frazier. Patterson respected Frazier's talent but disliked his attitude. Patterson once said, "Joe fights angry. He doesn't box. He brawls." Frazier didn't appreciate that. He took it as an insult to his legacy. When Patterson worked as a commentator later in his career, he often downplayed Frazier's chances in fights, particularly against Foreman and Ali. Joe saw that as betrayal. Frazier responded in kind, saying, "Floyd's a nice man, but nice men don't win wars." Their quiet feud lasted years, mostly in words rather than punches. Patterson saw Frazier as raw and reckless. Frazier saw Patterson as soft and old-fashioned. 7. Ron Lyle. Ron Lyle was a dangerous puncher who earned his respect in prison before turning professional. Frazier didn't like Lyle's rise to fame. He saw him as an outsider trying to ride the heavyweight wave. When reporters suggested Lyle could beat Frazier, Joe snapped, "He ain't ready for me." "He's just talk, Lyle, never one to back down," replied. "Joe's scared. He knows I'd hurt him." The two camps exchanged words for years, and although they never fought, their tension was real. Lyle disliked Frazier's arrogance. Frazier dismissed Lyle as a man who never earned his place. Both were fierce warriors, but too similar to ever get along. 8. Jerry Quarry. Jerry Quarry was one of Frazier's most bitter opponents. They fought twice, and both times, Frazier beat him badly. But it was the way Joe fought that angered Quarry. Frazier didn't just win, he punished Quarry. In their 1969 fight, Quarry was left bleeding and bruised beyond recognition. Frazier never showed sympathy. Quarry later said, "He fought like he hated me. It wasn't boxing, it was personal." Frazier shrugged it off, saying, "It's just business. If you step in my ring, you get smoked." The two men represented different sides of America. Quarry, the white working-class hero, and Frazier, the proud black champion. Their rivalry carried social tension as much as sporting heat. Even years later, Quarry admitted, "I respected him, but I couldn't stand him." 9. Buster Mathis. Buster Mathis was Frazier's amateur rival, the man who once beat him for a spot on the 1964 Olympic team. But when Frazier got his chance, he came back for revenge, and he didn't hold back. In 1968, when they met professionally, Frazier destroyed Mathis, knocking him out in the 11th round. Afterward, Frazier taunted him, saying, "That's for the Olympics." Mathis, who had always seen himself as the more skilled boxer, was humiliated. He later said, "Joe never forgave anyone who beat him, even as an amateur." Their animosity went beyond the ring. Frazier viewed Mathis as lazy, while Mathis saw Joe as vindictive. Their rivalry was personal, deep, and lasting. 10. Joe Bugner. Joe Bugner, the Hungarian-born British boxer, had a natural disdain for Joe Frazier. He called Frazier one-dimensional and a puncher without brains. When they met in 1973, Frazier unleashed all his fury on Bugner, battering him over 12 rounds. Bugner survived but left the ring fuming, calling Frazier a wild animal. Frazier responded with a smirk, "I came to fight, not dance." Bugner continued criticizing Frazier for years, saying he couldn't box. All he did was charge forward to Frazier. Bugner was just another man trying to downplay his legacy. To Bugner, Frazier represented everything he hated about heavyweight boxing: brute force over finesse. Joe Frazier was never meant to be loved by everyone. He wasn't smooth like Ali, charming like Foreman, or soft-spoken like Patterson. He was raw, proud, and relentless, a fighter who came from the cotton fields of South Carolina and fought his way into history. And that's exactly why so many men hated him. He fought with emotion. He took insults personally. He never forgot who wronged him, and he made sure they never forgot him either.